Welcome into our lives.
And welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
We're so happy to have you.
Join us as we embark on a journey of deep exploration, soul searching, and asking the hard questions.
With the goal of truly understanding the most aligned, empowered, and purposeful versions of ourselves.
We want to live an extraordinary life, and we're willing to dig deep to find out what it takes.
Buckle up. You're about to meet a new version of yourself, an extraordinary one. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Expanders Club podcast. I'm your host, your spiritual bestie, your guide, oracle, transformation coach, Brooke Harris. And I'm so grateful to be here with you guys today. I feel like it's been a bit since we've had this, this one-on-one time. I hope you guys have been enjoying the Ask a Psychic sessions. Those have been so fun and so rewarding. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and check out some of the episodes. We started sharing them in July with myself and another intuitive, another psychic, Christina Trefaro. And we are doing live readings for people, helping them get some answers, some clarity, help leading them on their spiritual journey, their path of transformation. And it's, like I said, it's been really rewarding for us. And I hope you guys are enjoying seeing a little bit behind the curtain. And I think a lot of the topics that have come up are very relatable. So while we're getting answers for them, some of them might be for you as well. So we are heading toward the end of summer. It has been an epic summer over here. I think we started, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago that I was recording the episode about the summer and the energy of the summer and how it was about play and adventure and really, leaning into the childlike enjoyment of summer. And damn, I've done it, you guys. I really have. That's not to say there hasn't been work and other things happening, because there has, but I've really had a lot of fun this summer. We've coined it in my household the summer of ice cream, because we've eaten so much ice cream that honestly, you guys, ice cream at the moment sounds really disgusting, which is a crazy thing to say, but that's how much ice cream I've eaten. We went to the beach so many times. We got to spend time with family, a lot of outdoor time, I think some of the big keys, there's two pieces. One of it was like saying yes to things outside of the routine, right? And like pushing the boundaries a bit on maybe bedtime or what happens on a weeknight, active rebellion of going to the beach on a Monday night. So little tiny acts of rebellion out of the normal routine, saying yes to things that maybe, don't fit in with the normal routine, and it all worked out. It was all good, and we had a really great time, and our summer's still continuing, but I just am like patting myself on the back a little bit, because I'm like, I did it. I set out to enjoy the summer, and I really summered. Another thing that I think was huge and is still, and probably will be for a long time, a work in progress, but I really started to examine the shoulds in my life. And what I mean by that is anytime something came up of like, oh, I should do this. I should record a podcast episode, right? I should have a podcast come out every week. Things like that. A lot of work-related shoulds, of course. There's a million shoulds in our life, and I started to stop, and instead of reacting to the shoulds, instead of saying I should do this, so I'm going to do this, I slowed down to examine them and say, what's wrapped up in this should energy, right? I should do this because it will benefit me and my family and those around me, and it will have a positive impact and result, or I should do this because I'll feel guilty or I'll feel bad if I don't. And those two are very different energies, right? Like a should isn't necessarily a bad thing, but a lot of times if we don't examine it, we are actually just doing things so we don't feel guilty or so we don't feel bad. And that's what a waste of time and energy and no way to live. And we need to make time and space to live, right? So I think that was a huge key to my joyful, adventurous summer, was like really examining the shoulds and being like, is that something that I should and want to do because, and maybe you don't always want to do it, right? But you know there will be a positive result. You know it'll have a positive impact, it'll make life easier, it'll, be good for certain things. Or is it a should out of guilt or fear or, trying to make someone else feel good? And those became a hell no for me. Those became a no. And that examination definitely leads to learning other things about yourself, right? Like why is this thing making me feel guilty if I don't do it? Why do I feel so tied to this? Or why do I feel like I need to fulfill something for this person or this activity in spite of the fact that it doesn't really benefit me? It was a really good and beneficial process. And I'm sharing because I think it's a great starting place. And it doesn't have to be summer for you to examine your shoulds, right? We should not be living in a should life. It's a small thing, but it's a game changer. And like I said, it leads to a lot of different self-discovery and examination. And as we know, that is the path. That's the path to freedom, right? The more we can take these opportunities to really examine ourselves, examine our stories, examine our motivations, our subconscious thoughts, and start to dissect them and really stare them in the face, that is how we transform. That is the path to expansion, evolution, to joy, freedom, all the things. And today's guest is very incredible. Her name is Tasha Triana. She is a transformational coach, a hypnotherapist, Reiki master, and host of the Next Level Self podcast. Tasha helps ambitious soul-led women break free from subconscious patterns, emotional blocks, and survival mode conditioning, so they can embody the most aligned, liberated, and powerful versions of themselves. Who doesn't want that? So Tasha is incredible. Obviously, she has a really well-rounded background. She actually came from nursing as well. So you'll get to hear a bit of her story, but she was a nurse for a decade, got burnt out, and kind of went on her own healing and self-discovery journey, which led her to study and become proficient in these modalities that she uses to help people. And one of the big things that we talk about is the subconscious's role in our life, how it impacts every single decision that we make day to day, how our subconscious thoughts are created, how we can kind of go in and take control and rewire and transform them so that we can grow and expand and become our most aligned self. We actually really cover a lot. The subconscious is probably the thing I'm most excited about because I have seen through hypnotherapy, through other work, I have seen what an immediate impact it can make. And it feels almost like this little hack, right? It feels like it's not like a workaround or a quick fix, but it does feel like a little hack. And when you start to learn more about the subconscious, you're like, okay, it kind of becomes a no-brainer that is definitely a place to start, right? There are some things that these logical processes just can't get to the root of, or they take much longer. So if we can go directly to the subconscious and reprogram, rewire, it makes a really big impact. She talks about how our triggers are treasures, just like I kind of touched on examining the shoulds, but how when we can slow down and look at the things triggering us, that's where the real moments of self-reflection and learning and growth come into play. And one of the big things that I love that we really dig into is asking the question, what am I doing out of fear instead of joy? And how impactful that can be on changing your life. Just like I said, we're examining the shoulds. We're not doing things because we should. We're not doing things out of fear anymore. And a lot of the theme of what we talk about is this ability to have an awareness, to slow down enough to be aware of how we're reacting to things, of what is triggering us, of what feelings we're attaching to stories, to situations, to interactions, and then processing, examining, looking at them through different lenses to let them go, rewire, remove them. She is a wealth of knowledge. It's a really fun conversation. And honestly, we cover so much in an hour. This is definitely one that you are going to want to have your notes out or have a pen and pencil ready. Like, it's good. It's good. I'm going to link all of her info in the show notes, her social media, her podcast. She works one-on-one with clients. She is definitely, as you will see, a wealth of knowledge. And all of these topics that we talk about, there are a ton of pieces that you can start to apply to your life immediately and see immediate changes. They're all very accessible, very approachable. I love the way she shares things and the way she helps break them down. So make sure you give her a follow. Feel free to send me a note on your favorite parts of the episode or what you're going to start implementing right away. And if you need me, I'm here. You know where to find me. Shoot me a DM. You can sign up for an Oracle session or just let me know what you're going through and if there's any way I can help. All right. Appreciate you guys. I hope you enjoy the last few weeks of summer. If you aren't having or haven't had the joyful, adventurous, free summer that I just described, it's not too late. You can make the decision today. Eat ice cream every day for the rest of the summer. Get yourself to the beach, book a quick trip, make time with family, take a few days off. Whatever it takes, you deserve some fun and some adventure and some joy. Appreciate you all. See you soon. Hello, Tasha. Welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So happy to have you here. I am excited for this conversation. I have a feeling we're going to cover a lot of grounds. And I think the most exciting piece is how we're going to talk about the subconscious and our relationship to that. But first, can you introduce yourself and tell the people what you do?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and also to dive in. I love diving into many topics, but especially the subconscious mind. It's my favorite. To give a little insight about who I am. I always think this question is so interesting. There's so many different directions it can go into. And I'm sure we'll dive more into my journey as we talk. But I am a former nurse. I'm a subconscious transformation coach, a hypnotherapist, a Reiki master. Basically, I love all things mind, body, spirit. I can most likely be found reading some kind of book about the mind, the subconscious, psychology. I just love it all. I'm a Scorpio sun, so I have that need for depth. And now I work with mainly women. I help visionary women reprogram the beliefs and patterns that keep them stuck so they can really reconnect with their truth, embody their future self, and lead with authenticity and confidence and really create a life that lights them up.
Yeah, I love that. We all want that, right? We all deserve that.
Yes.
Love that you're a Scorpio sun. I'm a Cancer sun, so Cancers and Scorpios. And
we got our water. Yeah.
Yes. My husband's a Scorpio sun, and gosh, sometimes I'm just,
Yeah. I understand. I've had a few really good friends tell me, when I first met you, I was a little bit scared because I felt like you could see so deeply within me. And I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Yes.
But I'm not scary.
Yeah. That's a good trait to have when you are working with people to help them with their transformation, to truly be able to see them when I'm sure a lot of times they can't really see themselves.
Yes, thank you for that reflection. And I do think that is one of my superpowers. I help people be reminded of who they truly are. I think that's I was really reflecting on this question lately that was asked to me, if you had to answer in only one word, what is the problem you help solve? And I really think for me, it's disconnection, helping people feel more connected to themselves, that relationship with themselves, their vision, who they truly are, who they came here to be. And I think sometimes along any of our journeys, we do forget who we are and who we're becoming. And so it is really nice to have someone in our circle, in our corner, in our life, remind us and help us hold that vision, especially in the moments when it's challenging for us to do so.
Yeah. Tell me about the moment that what's the moment in clients' lives when they're coming to you saying, hey, I need help?
Yeah, it tends to be a variety, but I think the most common themes that I see are they're in a big transition. Maybe they've just had something really shift in the 3D realm. Maybe they're going through a job transition, a relationship transition, or they're feeling stuck. A lot of times my clients come in and say they're feeling stuck, like they're doing all the things. Maybe they're meditating, they're doing some sort of visioning, or, getting really clear on, not even clear a lot of times. Sometimes they're still a little bit hazy as to what the next phase holds. So I help
Mm-hmm.
them get that clarity, help them understand the direction they're going in, and just really help them shed those deeper layers, because the subconscious mind, which I love to work with, as I mentioned, is responsible for creating 95% of our reality. So sometimes we get stuck trying to shift with strategy and habits, which of course are important, but it's not really like the big hitting place if we want to create that deep, deep, long lasting, sustainable change.
Yes. So let's talk about that. Can you share that stat again?
Yeah, 95% of our reality is created by the subconscious mind, or our subconscious is responsible for creating that. And so when we work with the subconscious mind, which was mainly formed and programmed from ages 0 to 7,
Mm-hmm.
we really have impact, because I like to think of it, my analogy is we all have a smartphone in this day and age. And so we can think of ourselves like the phone. And if we want to run a program, say I want to get to your house and I've never been there before, I will go in and use the map, the application, the map. If and that will get me there. But if I went in and tried to use iTunes or Spotify, that wouldn't help me get to your house. And so we could say that the app is like a subconscious program. So the phone itself isn't bad. I'm just using a wrong program. So say someone who really wants to step into their most confident, authentic self, but they're running programs maybe of unworthiness or I'm not good enough. It's not that the person is bad or wrong, it's just the program that they're running is not congruent with where they actually desire to go and what they desire to create.
Yeah, so let's simplify that even more. Like,
Hmm.
what does our day-to-day look like if our subconscious is running the show, which it is the fact. Can you give me some like real life examples of that?
Yes, it's basically just being on autopilot. Some of these are in quotes, good habits and ways of being, and some of them might not be, again, in alignment with what we want to create. One way we can shed some light is think about when you wake up. What are the things you do automatically? Most likely, someone gets up, they probably go to the bathroom, they maybe brush their teeth. These are things we do without really thinking. It's just such an ingrained pattern and habit. That's our subconscious just taking over,
Mm-hmm.
being on autopilot. Those things are, I would say good habits. We want to get up and brush our teeth and go to the bathroom. But some other habits that might be autopilot, I used to do this. It's not something I've done for years, but is maybe check our phones first thing in the morning. Maybe someone goes on and goes right into Instagram or social media or the news or responding to messages. And that might not be serving them, but it's just an automatic thing that they've been conditioned to do. And that's part of their subconscious. It's just an automatic autopilot way of being. And so once we start to shed some light into what am I doing, bring awareness to how do
Yes.
I show up, and not from a place of judgment, but again, just to ask, is this actually congruent with the direction I want to go? Is this how my future self shows up? Really asking ourselves and bringing awareness to that allows us to start understanding how we've been programmed, what our program is doing, or essentially is it running us? And then we can start to make the shifts that do feel in alignment with where we desire to go.
So are we trying to override the subconscious and make that number smaller? Like, okay, now instead of my conscious running 5% of the day, it's running 10% of the day? Or are we trying to shift the ideas and beliefs and systems within the subconscious, still let it run the show, but we're shifting what what the
Yes,
programming is in there?
exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes, we're shifting that, not overriding it. We can't really outperform the subconscious. So we go
Damn.
in. Yeah, I know exactly. If only we could. We try though, and that's where to break it down a little bit, the subconscious is 95% and the conscious is 5%. What's held in the conscious mind is the critical mind, it's logic, it's strategy. I think of it almost more as like in terms of masculine and feminine energy, that masculine energy, we need both. But in terms of the subconscious, and it's 95%, that's the feelings, that's the emotions, our identity is held there. And again, that's the programming that runs the show. And so, yeah, we're not going in to override the system, we're going in to reprogram it. And like I said, some beliefs in there are really supportive of us. Say, for example, someone subconsciously believes that it's really easy for them to make friends. If they move to a different city, they don't have any fear about meeting a new community or, stepping into a new space, not knowing anyone. They feel confident that they can. So that's, I would say, a subconscious belief that really benefits that person. And so again, it's the first step in understanding how to work with the subconscious is starting to bring awareness there. What are some of the beliefs that are going on below the surface? I'll share, in a vulnerable share, not that vulnerable, but, to just shed light. One topic where we have a lot of programming, as you can imagine, is money, abundance. It's
Mm-hmm.
a deep one. And if we really look at, wow, most of our programming was formed from 0 to 7. And again, anytime in life when we've had a highly traumatic or dramatic event, emotional event, we create subconscious beliefs. And I've done a lot of work in many areas of subconscious, but I recently uncovered a deep belief that I had that money equaled self abandonment. And I thought, whoa, that
Wow.
is such a big one, because
Yes.
if I believe money equals self abandonment on this really deep level, in some way I'll always reject money because I don't want to be self abandoned. And my
Yes.
past and my history, when I worked as a nurse, I burnt out really early on in my career working in the hospital. And I had a lot of beliefs: you have to work hard to make money, you have to hustle, you have to grind. And I did that until I burnt out. And then, there's always layers and how deep these are. Sometimes they're generational beliefs too that are passed down from generation. And so really looking at, oh wow, okay, I no longer want it to mean that money equals self abandonment. I want it to mean money equals self love or self empowerment or self expression. Because in this world, the reality is we need money in this 3D world, and money can actually support me in expanding myself and expanding others and having the impact I want to have in the world. And so when I saw that one, I'm like, wow, that is so fascinating.
That's yes. So let's like break this down into steps. So first
Hmm.
you identified the subconscious belief that wasn't serving you.
Yes.
How did you do that?
Yes, it's a good question. So I can talk it through, for example, like if a client comes to work with me, a client will usually come in if we're working in the realm of the subconscious mind, specifically in hypnosis, hypnotherapy. They'll come in, they usually have an area in which they're feeling stuck, or they're noticing a repeating pattern, a cycle. Maybe it's in relationships, they're cycling through the same type of person. It's a different person, but very similar patterns and themes come up. And so usually a client will come in feeling stuck, repeating a pattern, maybe a bit defeated, and also like they're wanting to call something in new. So it's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
combination. So they'll come in, we'll kind of talk through different things that are going on. And the first step, really, for me in starting to gain awareness is to start looking at the patterns in our lives. So if we are having a repeating pattern, say it is in that example of dating, the person says, I don't know, I keep just dating this type of person, and maybe lists out characteristics. Well, then we can ask, what must you need to believe? And sometimes it doesn't make sense. It's not conscious.
Yes.
Again, it's
Yes.
feelings and emotions. They don't necessarily make sense. Like mine, where I'm like, oh, money equals self-abandonment. Like, I don't want that. But it's okay. We do it with compassion, and we look at what must I believe, or what type of person must I be in order to keep attracting this, or in order to keep calling this in. And then from there, again, it doesn't necessarily make sense, or it might not necessarily be what we desire. But the first step in creating any change is starting to have awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And isn't it so much easier to see someone else's subconscious patterns than your
Yes,
own?
yes, yes, it is. We
It's
have
like,
blind spots.
yeah. I mean, I could tell someone else in 20 seconds what
Hmm.
their subconscious belief is. Um, Talk to me. I want to share an experience with you that was like kind of a real aha moment for me on how powerful the subconscious is. And I know you're a
Hmm.
hypnotherapist. I've been, and you can give your perspective from like the clinical science side of this, but I have this one last fear, and it's not I'm not going to use that language because it's not a
Hmm.
fear that I have anymore, or I'm working toward that. But
Hmm.
um, I moved to the South a few months ago to Wilmington, North Carolina, and my fear came to visit me, stared me in the eyes essentially, and it is the fear of snakes. Like
Mm.
this crazy, Tasha, let me tell you, crazy, irrational fear of like every time I go outside looking for them. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
had a few incidences where I saw snakes. I was already afraid coming here because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of nature.
Right.
There's a lot of nature, which is what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted for my nervous system, right? And for
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
kid. And um was confronted by this fear, and it was very illogical to every time I'm outside I'm searching every single possible space looking for a snake.
Mm-hmm.
When I did see a snake, then I had a few weeks where I would be in the house and hear a noise and be like, was that a snake? Like, is there a snake under my bed? Is there a snake
Mm-hmm.
under the couch? Like, totally crazy, and I had no control over it. And it would be, even when I'm in the house, like elevated heart rate, like scared, like really
Mm-hmm.
scared, like a child, that like childlike fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally one day I was like, I can't live like this. I I am going to get over this fear. And one of the places I went was, I have a girlfriend who's a hypnotherapist, and
Mm-hmm.
I very much believe in the power of hypnotherapy, whether I
Mm-hmm.
fully understand exactly what's happening or not.
Yeah.
But this was, and she's explained the science to me many times, but this was a moment where it really clicked, where I felt like we were able to identify some scenarios from my childhood that would have made me feel this heightened fear of
Mm-hmm.
snakes,
Mm-hmm.
and shift that a bit to a point where once I was able to come out of the session and be back out in life, I now, like, really with one session, it's almost like it brought the irrational pieces into my conscious mind. And my conscious mind was like, oh no, that's so silly. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're safe. You don't have to, of course, like, you don't want a snake at your feet. That's fine to be
Mm-hmm.
scared, but you don't have to search high and low for them. You are safe. You can look in front of you and make sure that you're staying safe and not worry that one's gonna like jump out of a tree or out from under the couch or these
Right.
crazy things. And it's been life changing for me.
Mm. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so my understanding is that is an example of, I don't, what it felt like to me was like, oh, I was bringing, to me, it was like putting conscious attention on these things that were hidden in my subconscious, that were stories that I had kind of remembered, but not really understood the weight of them and how they impacted me and the lens that they were making me see through.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say it's a little bit of both, like some rewiring and also bringing it into the light of the conscious mind, or how would you break that down?
Yes, of course. It is. And thank you for sharing that story and for sharing openly about that. I'd be curious, did you have any experiences when you were younger that did involve snakes, or was this just something not related, seemingly not related, we'll say?
Oh no, it's very related, and my audience knows a lot about my background, so I'll share a quick version with you.
Mm-hmm.
The highlight, there were a lot of incidences, but the highlight was an incident where my stepfather, who was abusive when I was a kid, forced me
Mm.
over to a snake.
Oh
In
gosh.
I'm guessing in a, act of like, see, this isn't scary.
Mm-hmm.
But that same fear, and I remembered it because
Mm-hmm.
in this incident, because when I saw the snake as an adult again,
Yeah.
I it took me right back to that same feeling, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
triggered the
Mm-hmm.
memory of it,
Mm-hmm.
and the memory had been there. I just hadn't thought about it in, decades. And so that and then there's some other layers, but that was probably the basic memory of like being forced against my will and
Mm-hmm.
dragged over to face a snake.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And yeah, that's really scary. Whether you're younger or older, I think being forced to do something against our will, one, but then also with something that brings us fear or, nerves. And I think there's, yeah, multiple layers, and that memory was still living in your body, in your subconscious.
Yes.
We can say the body is the subconscious. And when we work in, yes, deconditioning and rewiring, it's both, because consciously in our mind, we could know rationally, like, I don't need to go looking for snakes when I go outside, or most likely there's not going to be a snake in the couch. These things that consciously we can understand that, but subconsciously and in the body, there's still a fear living there. And oftentimes, when we have a traumatic event or an experience, we experience it, but we might not be in a place or safe enough to fully experience kind of the trauma loop and fully let it out. And so it gets stored in the body. And it
Mm-hmm.
also gets stored as, we would say, a protective belief, because our mind is here to predict and protect. And it does have a negative lens to it because it wants to keep us safe. One of the subconscious's main jobs is to keep us safe.
Yes.
And how it defines that is the familiar. So in your system, it had here alert, this is not safe. This is what happened to me before, even though consciously you couldn't fully recall it in that moment. When you do a hypnosis session or hypnotherapy session, you are able to get into a relaxed state, which serves many purposes. One is it helps move your body out of fight or flight and
Mm.
into a more rest and digest state. It also slows your brain waves down, and it allows you to feel in a more safe space to be able to tap in and to come up with things that are also, I do believe in the timing too. We also have to be ready and resourced enough in
Yes.
ourselves to release it. Maybe
Yeah.
even for me sharing the story about money, maybe a year ago I wouldn't have been able to see that for myself, or I wouldn't be ready to go there, we can just say, and same
Yeah.
for you with the snake. And so healing, as you know, is not linear. It happens in layers. And something that's interesting that I think maybe would be helpful for the audience too, in terms of the body and somatics, because everything works together, mind, body, spirit, and everything is interconnected. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with Peter Levine. He's like an OG in the world of somatics. One of his biggest books that he wrote, he has several, is Waking the Tiger. And he explains very beautifully, when we have these trauma loops kind of trapped in our body, humans, of course, are very different than animals. But if an animal, such as a gazelle, is in the wild and is being chased by a predator, it gets away, say this one gets away, it goes back to its pack. And when it's in an area of safety, it goes through this like ritualistic shaking that it does. And that
Yeah.
essentially lets that experience leave the body. But as humans, we don't do that. We don't go around shaking. And so that experience gets trapped in the body. And we can think of it as, our system is very intelligent. It's trying to protect us. Some of us go into freeze, some of us fight. Like there's different ways in which we respond and react, and it gets suppressed or it gets kind of stuffed
Mm-hmm.
down. And I would also add, and it was such a beautiful example you shared and so graciously with the audience about the snake. While yes, it is about the snake, usually it's not about the face value of it. Of course, for some people, snakes are scary and something that we don't necessarily want to come across when we're just out on a walk trying to enjoy nature. However, it's usually deeper than that too. Maybe, I would imagine, and I don't want to put words in your mouth by any means, but as a younger version of you, you probably felt powerless or very
Mm-hmm.
fearful, or maybe created all of these other beliefs about what that
Totally.
represented, maybe lack of control or powerlessness. And so it was also being projected onto the snake. And so, yes, the snake is scary, but it also came with it other beliefs and
Oh,
programmings that
yes.
were projected onto it.
Yes, and that's where the conscious mind has a hard time like working through stuff because it's like,
Yeah,
wait, none of this makes sense. Like there's no reason we
exactly.
should have this heightened of a feeling and be this afraid.
Hmm.
But the subconscious is like, oh hell no. Like
Right.
we
Nope. Yeah, we're not doing
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Yeah, and that's where talk to me about like how like I said, hypnotherapy is a tool that I've used and I have
Hmm.
really it's made and I've used all of the tools. But
Hmm.
and I think there's a place for all of them, but hypnotherapy has really made a difference. How do we address that without hypnotherapy? Like how do we make that shift without hypnotherapy?
Yeah, you mean shift to not be afraid, or what shift
Yeah,
specifically?
how do we shift our subconscious?
Yeah, I think hypnosis is a powerful tool. Again, I think once we start to bring in the awareness of our patterns and the things that are repeating, it is like you named very nicely, multiple modalities can work together. But I
Mm-hmm.
think really being able to first identify what might be there and really asking ourselves, like if we're not working with the hypnotherapist in the moment, like, is this true? And start to almost challenge the belief, because even if it doesn't make sense, one of the ways we do rewire is through repetition and consistency. And we have to think, however old you are in this given day, you've had decades probably of looping a certain belief or
Yes.
feeling. And so sometimes, yes, in a moment, things can shift very quickly, but often to really create that lasting change, it is the repetition, the consistency, and shedding the deeper layers. So I would say really questioning in the moment, and in the moment, most of the time we are actually safe. It's just that our being perceives that we're not. And in this
Mm-hmm.
day and age, usually we don't have, like back in the day, a tiger or something to that effect chasing us, but it could be checking an email, maybe from a boss or a coworker, and that could send us into a heightened state of fight or flight. So in the moment, really bringing awareness to the body and just taking a moment to pause, to breathe, to just be sometimes in that discomfort, which none of us really like to do. We tend to want to avoid any discomfort that comes up. But if you're able to just kind of sit with it or identify the feelings that are coming up and just tell yourself, in this moment, I am actually safe. Our body really craves that safety. And if we don't feel
Yes.
safe, it's not a space that we can heal in. If we don't feel safe, we're most likely in survival mode. And that's not a place where we learn, where we grow, where we create. It's a place where we're just focused on surviving.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me how you feel about affirmations.
I think it's nuanced. That's like my answer to everything. Nothing is really black or white. I think it
Hmm.
depends. I think that they can be very helpful in repetition. However, if it's very far-fetched, in the sense
Yes.
that, say someone has $0 in their bank account and they're saying, I'm a millionaire, that might not exactly land. The conscious mind might just shut that down, like, are you kidding? No, we're not. And so, right? And so I think it might need something more believable, like I'm on the path to blah, 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 or I am, something that kind of bridges it. I think it has to be in the realm of believability in some way. And then from there, like a stepping stone, you can add on and
Yes.
jump off of that. But I do think that they can be very powerful. But I think, again, it's nuanced. It depends kind of what you're saying. How many are you doing? I like to focus on the side of simplicity, and maybe I'll work with one at a time rather than 10 different ones and
Mm-hmm.
really
Yes.
solidify that one in a believable way and then move on to something else. But I do think that it can be really powerful. I also think that the state you're in when you are giving yourself the affirmations also really matters. If I'm in a relaxed state, I would say that is in a way like a hypnosis, or allowing it to penetrate in a deeper way, rather than if I'm super stressed out and trying to tell myself something new in the moment, it most likely won't land in that type of way that I'm hoping it will.
Totally. That makes sense. You can't really, it's like everyone wants to manifest, but
Mm-hmm.
there's so much foundational work that has to be done, right?
Yeah.
Before your affirmations or your manifesting is working. I love the example you gave about safety because it showcases something that discomfort and emotions are a gift and an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for us to dig deeper is kind of what I was hearing from you.
Yes, definitely. I think now I probably didn't believe this before, but I think that triggers actually lead to treasures if we're willing
Mm-hmm.
to let it be that. If we're
Yes.
willing to be honest with ourselves, kind of face the fear and ask, why am I being triggered here? What is coming up for me? What is, and that very Scorpio, but I'm like, that allows us to tap also into our shadow. And we all, no matter who we are, we all have light, we all have shadow. It's part of the human experience. But I think the more we can really tap into our shadow and alchemize it, the more empowered we actually become too. And so I think it's both being able to work with the light and the shadow.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good point because if we are in flow, in peace, in joy, which I'm sure is the direction a lot of your clients want to go,
Hmm.
where we all want to be, like, you can't be triggered, right?
Hmm.
Because triggering is such an emotional thing, and it feels like automatically when you break it down like that, it feels like, hey, if something is triggering you, there's probably some deeper subconscious belief behind that and
Hmm.
why, and like what an opportunity to dig in.
Hmm. Yes, definitely. It's so deep. I'll share an example that maybe people will relate to. And sometimes it's energetic triggers. It might not be something that someone even says to you, or a situation that seems less direct. This was a couple months ago. I went to the grocery store, and the woman who was, the cashier, I felt very triggered. This is just the best word I can say. And when I left, I'm like, wow, what was happening? I don't know that woman. There's no, like, in quotes, reason for me to feel this way. And again, consciously, my mind is trying to make sense of it. but I knew it was deeper than that. And I sat with it, and I really, in the car, I was like, her energy, it seemed like she was just in such a bad mood.
Hmm.
And I was, one, like taking it on as my own.
Absorbing. Yes.
And that is an old pattern of mine. I've had a lot of people pleasing tendencies in my past. And that also is a coping mechanism, that I developed in childhood. And I really sat with it. Okay, her discomfort was uncomfortable for me, but I also noticed I didn't try to make her feel better, be in a better mood, which I probably would
Hmm.
have done in the past. And so that was an edge for me in a good way, because I was stepping into a new, more empowered version of myself. And then energetically, I could tell she reminded me of a family member. And so all of this was happening subconsciously until I really got aware of the feelings in my body of not, I'm like, something is going on here with me. What is this? It's an opportunity to dig a little deeper and to
Yes.
also remind me in the moment, I'm actually safe. I'm okay. I'm able to show up in a new way. And that seemingly simple interaction actually opened up to a lot of different themes, patterns,
Yes.
and
Yes.
possibilities from the past. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that example, and I want to pause on that for a moment because it is that is the work. That's what this looks like, right? No matter how evolved, how expanded we are, how much we know, how much we've worked on,
Yes.
it's not about being perfect and never being triggered and never having these experiences that take us out of our flow state. It is
Hmm.
about what happens when something does trigger you. What happens when something does throw you off, take you out of flow state, take you out of the energy you want to be in. And
Yes.
that could have been days or weeks of a spiral, right? And yet it
Totally.
was like moments. It was
Hmm.
moments. You sat with it, you recognized it, you sat with it, you identified what it was, and you sounds like you let it go and moved on.
Exactly. And that piece too, where we discussed it, yeah, it can feel uncomfortable to be in it and to really sit with it. It's not always fun, but on the other side of that is the freedom and the release. And I totally hear you. I used to think like, oh, I'm in my flow. I don't want anything to disrupt me. And if it did, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to deal with this. But now, even though it's hard and sometimes it's challenging, but I really welcome the triggers because I know on the other side of that is expansion, is a bit more of transformation, and it really alchemizes, I would say, if we're able to sit with it. And I think I've had this fear as a Scorpio, being very deep, being very watery. I would get stuck in my emotions in the past, and I would just
Mm-hmm.
stay there and think,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, I would put myself almost in like a suffering pool of suffering and just really swim around in it. And now I'm like, I don't need to swim around in it. I can swim through it and move through it, and out the other side, like I mentioned, is more of the expansion and the transformation. And I think a lot of us do fear the emotion, or maybe we'll get stuck there, but really it's an opportunity to alchemize it and to move through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I think we're diminishing a bit is like you have to be able to have the awareness to stop and examine, right? And I think
Yes.
that that's a journey to get to that
Yes.
place, right? To even be able to have the awareness.
Hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of people, and I know if I think back to my rock bottom, like I didn't have the ability to do that at that
Hmm.
time. It was something I had to like essentially train myself to do or decondition myself to get to a place where I could do that. So
Hmm.
how do you work with people who are showing up in a place where they can't even have that own awareness for themselves to take the steps to work through something?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think most of the people that tend to come to work with me are self-aware in some capacity just by nature of the energy and the attraction,
Yes.
who I call in. But I think we all have this capability to build our self-awareness. And same for me when I look back on my journey, I think sometimes we can see where people are and think, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can ever be in that space, but yes, you can. I just want to expand people in that way. It's a journey and it's step by step. And sometimes I know for myself, like when I burnt out within the first year of working as a nurse, and I worked in the hospital for almost a decade,
Wow.
I call it
Wow.
like the cosmic two by four. Like I needed that wake up call.
Yes.
Was it
Yes.
challenging? Yes. Was it really painful? Yes. And looking back now, I'm grateful for that opportunity because it really shook things up in such a way that I was almost forced to really look at things in my life and what wasn't working, what was working, what contributed to that moment. And from that place, now many people often reflect back to me how good I am at self-care or how good I am at taking care of myself. But it came from, being on the other end of the spectrum and understanding the things that didn't work. And so sometimes I will say we do hit rock bottoms in life, or we have these, like I said, the cosmic 2x4 that almost forces us to a different level
Yes.
of awareness. But I think, being able to have that safety, and I would say starting with the relationship with oneself, just starting to get to know oneself, to create that safety within oneself, because that's the thing that will always be with us, is the relationship we
Mm-hmm.
have with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that now you have to tell us about the 2x4 moment
Yeah,
if you're up
yeah.
for it.
Oh, for sure, definitely. Yes. When I was working as a nurse, and I think this speaks a lot to also the subconscious and the identities we wear or we hold,
Mm-hmm.
and how often it comes from childhood. I'm a classic oldest daughter, big sister, kind of the
Same.
caretaker, yeah, right, caretaker, which is a thing. Birth order is a thing. Caretaker role, like a helper, peacemaker is kind of how I would, the fixer. And I became a nurse, which was interesting because I had never been one to really focus on the medical field. And to shed a little bit of light, I always had, my grandmas aren't alive anymore, which is a sad thing, but I'm very grateful for their presence in my life. And my mom's mom, she immigrated here from Central America, from Guatemala. And as a child going over to her house, she would always be doing, in my mind, kind of crazy things like yoga, green juicing,
Yes.
acupuncture. And back then, like, it was kind of weird.
Amazing.
She
Yeah.
was not, she was more of the trendsetter. It wasn't like a cool thing. And so I went to my first acupuncture appointment when I was 13, and always kind of had that seed planted in me. So when I decided to go to nursing school, I thought it was kind of interesting. And my intuition was like, I don't think you'll be here in the hospital forever, but for whatever reason, you're being called to this experience. And at the time, and this is still important to me, I really wanted to have an impact on the world. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be able to live anywhere in the world. And it felt like nursing was a really good avenue for that. So when I went in to start working in the hospital after nursing school, which is definitely a grueling process,
Yes.
I just remember, okay, adapting to the 12-hour shifts. I was also really stressed out. When you're new in the medical world, it's scary because
Oh,
you
I'm
literally have,
sure.
yeah, you have people's lives in your hands, literally, and you're just trying to figure everything out. And so it was kind of this mentality too, that the medical world still kind of holds today, where it's work hard, play hard. So you'd go in for these 12-hour shifts, and then on your days off it was like you needed to do everything. I remember I
Hmm.
would be, going on a hike, but then taking my grandma to an appointment, and then doing all the, putting out a lot of energy. I wasn't really filling my cup in a spiritual and emotional kind of way. I was good about exercising and eating well, but the soul essence was really
Yeah.
missing, and it became just too much. And I was depleted. I just felt so burnt out. Like everything around me just seemed like it wasn't working anymore. I was just not having much energy. And it really, when everything kind of came crashing down, like I said, it was hard, but it really allowed me to reevaluate, where am I overgiving? Where am I showing
Hmm.
up in ways that just don't really serve me? What am I doing because I'm fearful versus what am I doing because I'm actually enjoying it? And so it
Yes.
allowed me to ask myself a lot of these hard questions, and then through that start to change the way I showed up. And it was a process, and there's still layers being unpacked even today, but really allowing myself to make space for rest, to make space for rejuvenation. And even when I think generationally, is one of the things I mentioned earlier, when I look at all the women in my life that I grew up with, I never saw them resting ever. They were always busy
Yep.
going. If you
Yep.
rested, you would be given a job. And I honestly joke that I probably like reading so much because it was an activity that if my mom saw me reading, she would leave me alone. I'm like, oh, like this is like, I do like reading, but it's also a time to actually kind of
Your
relax.
own self-care. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Love what you said kind of in the middle of there, where with your own moment of where you were like, what am I doing out of fear instead
Mm-hmm.
of joy? And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's a really easy place to start. And I say
Yeah.
easy, it's almost easy to answer, but it's also like very confronting once you start to get the answers and have to take action on them, right?
Very confronting. Yes.
And unfortunately, we don't get there or take action until we are completely burnt out and we have nothing left to give to this like false path that we're
Mm-hmm.
walking down, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the heartbreak and obviously what has led you and I and many others to like, hey, as soon as I have this information, let me share it with others and help them. And
Yes.
like life doesn't have to be that way. But it is heartbreaking to see the journey that our generation has been on, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, now that I'm completely burnt out, now that I've given everything I have to this
Right.
path and realizing it's not right, now I'm ready to like figure out how to do something to take care of myself.
Right. Yes. And like we said, generationally, culturally, being women, we're given certain messages too, oftentimes
Yes.
that we have to show up for others first or our needs are not as important. And all of that really was my programming. And, I'm very grateful for my career as a nurse. And I realized as I became more aligned with my true essence, my authenticity, like, yes, I still love to help people, but it looks differently now versus before.
Yes. And also, that just made me realize like what a beautiful, massive shift we've made from one generation to the next, from just
Yes.
our parents' generation. Like you take a
Totally.
close look at them, and it's like, oh, whoa, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot, there's a lot going on there. And yet we, all that our generation has been through, all that we've been through as individuals, it's not in vain. Like we've transformed
Yes,
massively, and the difference that our children are going to experience, and
totally. Yes.
to me the lack of conditioning that they'll have, the ability to be themselves from day one, the ability to hear and listen to their own wisdom and intuition and follow their soul, like
Mm-hmm.
it's already a big shift with us, but like that's going to be a massive shift in a very short amount of time.
Yes, it is. You're right. And I think that is such a powerful reminder, too, that, I'm such a big advocate for the relationship we have with ourselves. And when we really show up for ourselves, we not only impact ourselves in our own journey, but everyone around us. And we're
Yes.
healing for past and future generations and creating a new legacy. It's really
Yes.
powerful work. I really believe that showing up for ourselves does change the world.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I like to talk in the world of energy, but
Mm-hmm.
just like the vibration, the shift in a vibration that you're putting out, like the ripple
Yes.
effect that has. And we all see it in tiny examples, when you smile at someone, when you say hi.
Yes.
Like I said, I moved to the South and everyone waves and everyone says hi. And it's just
Love
like,
it.
it is a whole different energy
Yes.
than what I
Yeah.
experienced in LA, which was still a lovely experience. But like, you're like, oh, you can feel yourself when a stranger waves to you and smiles, like it does change your own vibrations. It's
Yes.
incredible. And
Yes.
like
And energy is contagious in that way, for better or for worse.
yeah, right, exactly.
Hmm.
And that's something I want to get into with you too, because you come from a very science and fact driven background, right?
Hmm.
Nursing, hypnotherapy, even. But even in your language, and I think in your own energy, it's very soulful. And you're talking about the soul, about spirit, about energetics. Tell me your journey with and between the two.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, I do have a lot of science in my background, but it's so funny because I always lean more towards the side of energy and soul, I would say. If I just feel something, I'm in. I don't need to know the
Yes.
science. I'm just like,
Yes.
count me in. I'm
Oh
in.
my God. I have that argument with my husband all the time, who, as a Scorpio, he's very fact driven. We just had a conversation about astrology the other day, and he's like,
Mm,
there's no science to back up astrology. I was like, I don't care.
yeah,
Like, I don't care. I
I'm
feel it.
in.
I know
Yeah.
it,
Yes. Yeah.
As someone who is his astrology to a T also, let me tell
Hmm.
you.
Interesting.
So I am so with you on that. Like energy is our first language, and it is actually the language that it is the most clear to us. We've just gotten
Hmm.
away from understanding it.
Totally. And energy speaks before anything else does. And that's super subconscious too. I mean, I have lots of examples of in the hospital, even where I'd have a patient. I worked in postpartum, so I took care of newborns and
Oh,
moms. And I really loved being able to care for babies and moms, babies and adults. And it really kept my skills sharp in many ways. But there would be plenty of times where on paper, labs looked great, everything looked good. And I'm
hmm,
like, something is about to happen with this patient. And I would just know. And sure enough, but because I had that sixth sense, we could say, or just that
yeah,
intuitive hit, I would keep extra close care or attention on that particular patient because I just had that feeling. And it's like the paper didn't show me that, or the computer or the
Right.
labs, they didn't show me that, but I just had that sense. And there's also times, I mean, any of us could probably relate to this example where maybe you know, were, say at a family gathering and you went into a room and there were a couple family members there and they didn't say anything, but you're like, oh, this was an awkward conversation or something just happened here. You pick up
Yes.
on the energy, and again, that speaks before the words do, and that's what really impacts us in a powerful way. Even my interaction with the woman at the grocery store, she didn't say something specific to me, it was the energetics that I was
Yep.
picking up on. And even, like, I like to share this too with the subconscious mind, every day we have over 60,000 thoughts, and 90% of those are recycled. And when we think of the thoughts on repeat lead to feelings, and feelings
Mm.
allow us to take action or not take action, and
Mm.
that leads to the results in our life. But from an energy standpoint, I'm also a Reiki master, so I love to talk in
Yes, that's
energetics.
right. Yes.
And so thoughts lead to feelings, which leads to our vibration, which leads to our frequency. And science actually does tell us that like attracts like. And so we don't necessarily get what we want, we get what we're being, what
Right.
signal we're emitting out. So if I'm emitting out a certain frequency, even us having this conversation, we're like frequencied in many ways, and we're attracted to each other. And so again, it's like we're our own personal little radio tower sending out these signals, and then we get to tune in to whatever is on that
Yes.
wavelength or that vibration.
Yes. So how do you tell me about your energy hygiene or how you manage your own energy day to day?
Yeah, it's been a big learning for me in many ways, especially working in a hospital, which you could
Oh
imagine is
my
a place
gosh.
with a lot of energy. And it
Yes.
used to take me out in
Yes.
the beginning. I think, not think, that was a part of my burnout too, is just not understanding how to engage in the energy and disengage when I
Yep.
left and just not let it take me over. Now I have a lot of practices, but I would say a lot of it is just taking time, even throughout the day, to take a moment to come back to myself. Whether it's, say, we finish this podcast, I'll take a few moments to reground my energy, kind of pull it back to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I might go outside. It just depends. Even things as sound simple, but before I go to an event, I'll sit in my car for a couple minutes and then go out. When I get back to my car, I sit in my car another few minutes. What am I releasing? What am I pulling back to me? And just really taking that conscious moment to release what is not mine, and again, pull back my energy to myself. So those are kind of some of the things I do just consistently on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think you talked about earlier in a foundation of your work, which I agree with, is getting to know yourself. And I think
Yes.
that is one of the biggest gifts is understanding your own energy, because then you
Yes.
can immediately recognize what's not yours
Yes.
and remove it, identify it and remove it. But I love those practices, and it takes work to even have that awareness, right? And it's
Hmm.
so interesting how so much of this work is actually just having awareness.
Yes, it is. And like you said, knowing yourself, it's such a gift, one, to yourself, but again, to other people. I mean, even being in a partnership, I can tell my partner, hey, I think this is what I need right now. And he's like, okay,
Yes.
great. You know, or I'm like, you know what, we were going to go here. I think what I need is actually this in this moment. Okay, you know, and it's like a really, I mean, it takes, you know, it's taken me time too to learn how to have like honest, transparent conversations. It's all a process, I think, you know, and being able to treat ourselves with grace. But like you said, I mean, being able to know ourselves and what works for us, I know now, and now own, before I didn't as much when I was younger. I'm a very deep person. I'm introverted by nature, so I do recharge best on my own or maybe with my partner, you know, on occasion. But I really crave and need that deep alone time, especially
Yes.
because I do go so deep with my clients that I really want to and give that to myself to replenish and really then be able to show up not only for myself, but for the clients that I work with.
Yeah. I'm so curious. Do you know your moon and your rising signs?
Yeah, my moon is Leo and my rising is Pisces.
I knew there was Pisces in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got lots
Yeah,
of water. I also have a
yes.
stellium in Scorpio, so I've got a lot of
Oh
Scorpio, a
gosh.
lot
Oh
of water.
gosh. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful chart, but you're here to be deep. You're here to be deep. You're here to ask the questions
I'm here for the
and
depth.
bring the answers to
Yes.
light. Yeah. So
Yes.
thank you for following your soul's journey.
Yes, I'm here for it. I'm definitely all about the depth. That is for sure. You'll find me probably, in a gathering with one person talking about something deep most of the time. What is your
I
moon and rising?
so I'm a Cancer sun, Cancer moon, and Aries rising.
Oh, okay, nice.
Um,
Yeah.
yes, all three of us in my family, my husband and my daughter, were all double water signs. So we've
Oh,
been living,
interesting.
we lived in LA forever, and so we were always by water, but we moved to Wilmington, North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
a few months ago, and the water here is clear and warm,
Oh.
and there's no traffic and not as many people, so it's really
Mm-hmm.
easy to access, and we've been living at the beach, and let me
Ooh.
just tell you, the healing is simply getting into the
Ah,
ocean, even
that's
just
my
putting your
favorite.
feet in, like
Mm-hmm.
even just seeing it really, like the
Yes,
healing is, it's like it's lifetime. And in the month of July, we went to the beach like 25 times. It's like
that's
that was
amazing.
lifetimes of healing work,
Literally.
just going to the ocean.
I even get goosebumps as you talk about it. And that is one thing I will say when you asked about energetic hygiene. That's a big one for me. I feel grateful being in Southern California where I can also jump in the ocean. And
Yes.
I feel, I was telling a friend the other day, it for me literally feels like anything I'm carrying energetically, when I dunk in the water, it does like it dissolves, just
Yes.
like it
Oh, yes.
completely dissolves. It resets my nervous system. I'm not a fan of cold plunging, but cold ocean, yes.
Yeah, I bet too, if you spend enough time on water, I bet you get like psychic downloads and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
channeling
I
in
get very
water.
tapped in. Yes, yeah, the water signs, we need the water. We all
Yes.
need it, but I think especially as water signs.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that just briefly because I know you are a somatic practitioner, somatic healer, and I think that is, I don't want to say it's an easy place, but it's a place that someone can kind of start for themselves a bit. Like you can do somatic things on your own
Hmm.
and release, like you had talked about earlier, like the gazelle,
Yeah.
releasing that. And you, what was it that you said? Like this, the body is the subconscious.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
so that concept is wild. I want you to, can you just touch on that one more time and then talk about maybe how what somatic work is and how it could help? Because that was a big game changer for me too. I didn't realize how off my nervous system was. And
Hmm.
like you said before, like that puts you in a place of survival mode. And so I know there's some easy
Yeah.
things people can do to start to shift that and kind of shake some things out of their body.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good question. And yes, the body is so important to incorporate. Like we can't only live in our headspace. And when we think about it, like I have a client, she was so funny. She used to say, I was like a walking, talking head, like I only lived in my head. And
Oh, that's so relatable, especially
yes,
anyone who's ever had health issues or felt like their body has quit on them before their brain or their body can't keep up. I think that's
hmm,
a thing a lot of women feel,
yes.
and we tend to shut ourselves. I know for myself, I was like, this body is holding me back. This body is
Hmm.
so annoying. Like, why can't my body keep up? And that is just causes more and more harm.
Yes, totally. And I think, we're in relationship with everything, whether it's ourself, another person, our relationship with our body. How do we talk to our body? How do we treat our body? That's something that could be like a whole podcast in itself,
Right.
but how do we really show up for our body? Because in this in this realm, yes, we are souls in a 3D body, but it's again, it's nuanced. Like, yes, we're multidimensional and we live in a body. We have to care for our body. This is our vehicle here in this earth, in this moment, in this lifetime. And so one is, it is again about bringing awareness. Even say, for example, in your snake example, I would ask you too, like if I were working with you, like where in your body do you feel that fear? Where does it come up? Because I could have 10 people who are expressing fear of snakes, and one might say, like, oh my gosh, it's in my stomach. And someone else might say, oh my gosh, it's in my head. I feel dizzy. Someone else
Mm,
might say it's the back of my neck. And they're all right. It's their
right,
experience.
right.
And so, first, again, like that awareness piece is to tap in with that. And some people are really in tune with their body, and mind and body are always communicating. Sometimes the mind will kick off a thought and then the body follows, or sometimes the body will have a feeling and then the mind follows. It's like, oh, we're supposed to feel overwhelmed right now. Let's go into that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so they're always communicating. And so sometimes for some people it's easier to identify the thought and then they can connect to the body. And sometimes someone might say, oh my gosh, I'm having chest pain or tightness here, or I feel compression in my chest. And then we can say, oh, okay, what was going on in that moment? Or were you
Hmm.
thinking about some? And then we can start to connect the dots. But one, I would say, is to really just bring presence to it in the moment, kind of like we talked about before, to move through it, reminding yourself you're safe. But then in terms of actual somatics and body, a great one, honestly, is movement. And so whether that's walking, I love to do, sometimes I just leave voice notes for myself when I'm on a walk too, because it's like
Love
tapping
that.
into the mind and body,
Yeah.
and just, it's like out loud journaling in a way, it's like you can just leave it, delete it if you want, or, whatever you need to do. But that sometimes helps me move both the body and the mind. I think dancing is a really great one. Like you can just have, I sometimes encourage clients to just create different playlists, whether it's one where you're like
Yes.
angry and you want to express some anger and you have some songs that support you in that. Or maybe it's grief or you're going through some sadness, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that might be. And just move your body in a way that it wants to. Our bodies are extremely intelligent. And if we kind of get out of our own way, which is usually,
Yes.
we're always our own
Yes.
block, but if we allow ourselves to just really move in a way that speaks to us intuitively, our body, it ultimately, it wants to be in a homeostasis state. Like it wants to
Mm.
be in a harmonious state. And so if we make space for that, it will try to achieve that on
Yeah.
its own. Dancing is good. Breathing is always really good in a way
Mm.
that, aligns with people. I personally am not as much a fan of the holotropic breath work. I used to teach it actually, but for me personally, that one is a lot for my nervous system. It can
Y-
send me too much into overwhelm after.
yes. Agreed.
So I think it's nuanced. It really depends on the person and that relationship you have with your body. I think the ocean is a great one to help bring you into the body, or just like a body of water, anything that helps you get into your body,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's like grounding, putting your feet, you even mentioned just putting your feet in the ocean, yes, or sand or grass. Just reminding ourselves that, yeah, we're not just a headspace, we're a
Yes.
body. So anything we can really do to move us into that. I also like journaling, not typing, but actual writing, because
Mm-hmm.
that, again, if you really allow yourself to drop in, it taps you into your subconscious and it allows things to come out that you might be surprised what comes out.
Yes. Yes. I love when I teach about intuition. Journaling is like,
So powerful.
especially if you're doing it first thing in the morning or at night, a lot of times that is channeling. That is your
Yes.
intuition, your higher self coming through.
Yes.
Um, and
And
back to the,
even, oh,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just going to say, even with that, the subconscious, right in the morning when you wake up and right before bed, so as you're coming out of sleep and when you're drifting into sleep, those are the most powerful times to work with the subconscious and really thinking about, okay, if I'm planting seeds right
Mm-hmm.
now, what seeds am I planting?
Yes.
Is it that I want to go on social media first thing? Is that what I want to plant into my being? Or, and no judgment, you get to decide if that's in alignment, but, is that going to serve what you want to create for the day? And for me personally, I really use, especially the morning time, for reprogramming.
Yes.
One of the
Yes.
things that first got me into this world was really shifting my identity from being a nurse to an entrepreneur, because that
Mm-hmm.
was something that had kind of kept me stuck in the hospital longer. I trusted divine timing, but maybe longer than I would have wanted back then. And so I started to record my own future self audios and I would listen to them every
Love
morning, the
that.
same thing. And that
Yes.
things would start to shift. I'm like, okay, this is the new identity I'm creating for myself.
That right there on its own is life changing.
So
Like start
powerful.
to think, and I love the symbolism there. Start to think about your morning of like what seed am I
Yes.
planting today?
Yes.
That is that will change your life because that
It really
changes
will.
the way you show up. It changes the perspective you're thinking through. It changes your goals, your feelings,
Yes.
like how you react to things. Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was very powerful for me. And it's something I still do. I just tweak the recording every year or every 6 months as needed. I just look at, okay, what direction am I going in? What do I desire to create? But most importantly, who do I desire to be? Because the identity,
Yes.
I like to say, is the deepest layer. Because if you have the identity, say, of a person who is confident, fully authentic, they already have different beliefs about themselves and
Yes.
even a different posture, a way of engaging with the world than a person who, say, has low self worth or lack of confidence. They already have a different set of beliefs going on.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. And it's like as we're talking about it, it feels so simple and so logical, but like start to do it. We make
Yes.
so many excuses in the morning. I've been getting up early for years and have my morning routine, and I don't miss it because I know how much it shifts my day,
Mm-hmm.
and in turn has shifted my life.
Yeah.
But I think it's a hard one for people. It's a hard one to
Mm-hmm.
start implementing, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, sometimes we like need to be saved from ourselves,
Totally.
like,
Yes. Yeah.
um, one thing I want to touch on the body stuff too is I think something that was a big shift for me, and I had to keep saying it until I like fully believed it, but was reminding myself that I chose to be here in this physical body,
Yes.
and then having a relationship and conversation with the body, like, hey, we're in this, reminding
Mm-hmm.
myself we're in this together, like we are
Mm-hmm.
one unit. How do we operate to the best to the best of our ability as a unit?
Yeah, totally. I like to think of it as, all right, my body and I like to personify things a lot, even with money, but body too. It's like if body was my best friend or was someone I really cared about, how would I show up for them? I would
Right.
be
Yes.
nourishing. I would, give them healthy
Mm-hmm.
foods. I would talk to them in a kind way. And our body is always listening. And so when we really think about, okay, what's going on in our internal world, are we actually creating a place of peace, of possibility, or is it more stressful and, really even connecting with our inner narrative?
Yeah. I feel like the body's like a little puppy. Like
Yeah.
it just wants to like perform and do well for us, and like,
Hmm.
be sweet and take care of us. And we just need to give it the opportunity, and the
Yeah.
love to do
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I love
Um,
that.
Tasha, last question.
Yeah.
You have 20 seconds with someone. You are a wealth of knowledge and you have so much information. I know we could like do a 5 hour episode and not even fully cover it all, but let's break it down. If you just had 20 seconds with someone one time interacting with them, you want to say something that's going to impact or change their life, what do you tell them?
I love this. I think I would just come back to the greatest relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. And
Mm,
from that place, everything is built off of that. You really create your reality from the inside out. And the relationship you have with yourself will always be with you. Treat it with love and care.
yes. Yes. That's so beautiful. And like rewind that and listen to it on repeat until you believe it and you're ready to take action on that, because
Yes.
that's how you change your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally. I believe I ask myself too, if I'm someone who really loves myself, how would I show up right now? And that question is really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
There's so many good tips in this one. I cannot wait for people to hear it, and I think just hearing this alone will start to shift things for people. But if they wanted to go deeper, if they're ready to, transform, ready to heal their nervous system, ready to rewire their subconscious, how do they connect with you? How could they work with you?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me is either my website or my Instagram. My Instagram is The Nurtured Nurse, and my website is thenurturednurse.co, so CO, no M at
Okay.
the end. And on there, they can, see all of my offerings, whether it's I work in kind of two ways. One is a coaching track where I work very deeply with a person for 6 months when they're really ready to do the deeper
Mm-hmm.
shifts. And then I also have my hypnotherapy track where people might come in for, single sessions or a package, but those are both options. And then right now I have a special offering for your audience, which is a one-time one-to-one session that I don't usually offer, but it's called Design Your Dream Year. And this is for someone who is really wanting to get more clarity. Maybe they have a little bit of clarity and they're wanting more, or they're finding themselves stuck in some patterns. But this is one where they'll come in and develop a personalized framework for themselves to help them finish off the
I
year
love
coming
that.
from a place of alignment and authenticity and really creating from a place that is unique to that person, because we're all different and we are here to create and do different things.
I love that offering. That, just as you were sharing it, it has such an empowering energy to
Thank
it.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. You are incredible. Thank you for all the pieces of wisdom that you've shared with us today. I know the audience is going to get a ton out of it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for allowing me to be in this space and to share time and energy with you. I really enjoyed our conversation too.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, check out Tasha on Instagram. We'll link her website and everything else in the show notes. And if you're ready to transform and live your best life, definitely reach out to her. All right.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.